You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're listening to Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Locked On Mets is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Well, the Mets had an opportunity to sweep the Brewers on Wednesday, but they came up a little bit short. It was also an opportunity to gain a game on the Braves as they lost to the Nationals, and unfortunately, they were not able to capitalize. On the show today, I'll discuss the game in the first segment. In the second segment, I want to go through not only some of the injuries in the game, but some of the really questionable managerial decisions from Buck Showalter. I'm never one to knock the manager, but today I had some issues. We'll close the show going through what I was discussing on yesterday's podcast. I want to look through the Mets relievers and try to figure out what the battles are when it comes to making a playoff bullpen down the stretch in the final couple of weeks here. Before we get to any of that, though, I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, looking at this game, it was a frustrating one for the Mets. Offensively, they did nothing. 4 hits on the game, 3 walks, going against a pitcher in Adrian Houser that had a 4.62 ERA coming in. You'd like to see more, but as much as I would be able to criticize this offense, and yeah, if you really want to look at a minute sample size of just one game, not their best effort. For sure, you can erase it when going into this series, they had an opportunity to clinch a playoff berth, and they won that game. And then they had an incredible comeback victory the following day, and they won the series. They just beat a really good team. What the Mets did against the Brewers is far more impressive than what the Braves did against the Nationals, and you continue to hold pace with a 1-game lead. Now, Atlanta now has a game in hand that they will get to play on Thursday as the Mets are off. They're playing a 4-game set against the Phillies. You need to be rooting for Philly this weekend. The Phillies can take 3 of 4 from this Braves team, which is a massive if, and not something I would count on by any stretch of the imagination, even with those games being played on the road for a Braves team that has been much better at home. I wouldn't say much better, but certainly better, and they're on a winning streak, or they were on a winning streak at home that was snapped by the Nationals. As much as you have all that going on, the Mets have been holding pace. Even if the Braves are to win that game in hand they have, it's a half-game lead. You got a series in Oakland with your best 3 pitchers on the mound, Chris Bassett, Jacob deGrom, and Max Scherzer. The Mets are in good shape with what just happened. But to get into the details of this game, and it was a frustrating one for sure. Early on, Taijuan Walker was awesome, and that's what we've seen from him. 6 innings pitched. You look at the line, it looks a lot worse than what it would have indicated just through the 6 innings. Because through 6 innings, he gave up 1 run on a homer. That was it. Now his final line is 4 earned runs. That looks a lot worse because of what happened in the 7th inning. You got, once again, they probably should have pulled him, and we're going to discuss Buck Showalter a little more in the next segment, but here we go with this. So you have him start off the inning. He walks Jace Peterson. He gives up a pair of hits. Then you go to get David Peterson. Okay, so here it is, a tough spot where Peterson comes into the game, and 1 run had already been driven across, but you still had 2 runners on base. There's a sac bunt. So now you got runners at second and third. Then he gets a big strikeout. So what had David Peterson done wrong up to that point? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Comes in, sac bunt, strikeout. They intentionally walk Willy Adames, tough hitter, first base open, makes sense. You got the Brewers. They get Mike Brasso to replace Rowdy Tellez. So they are trying to get a righty against Peterson. And Buck Showalter overmanages. And I know I'm going to talk about this in the next segment, but it's hard to avoid it currently as I'm looking at this because that really was the game. The management of the seventh inning. Now, the Mets didn't score. So everything I'm saying you have to take with a grain of salt because you need the Mets to put up runs to win. So, and in the next segment, I'll give all the qualifiers on Buck Showalter. But in that spot, you have Peterson, who was throwing the ball pretty well. He has gone against righties and lefties all year long as a starting pitcher. You grab Drew Smith out of the bullpen. Drew Smith, who hadn't pitched in a really long time. I mean, let me actually look up the exact date it had been since we saw Drew Smith pitch for the New York Mets. Because to grab him in this spot, so it's literally been almost 2 months. It'll be 2 months to the day when you get to the 24th, which will be on Saturday. It's the last time that Drew Smith appeared in a big league game. You get him, and not only do you get him and get him up, you rush. You rush to get him up. You were doing the whole managerial move of taking your time, having a mound visit before you actually pull the pitcher. Why? To go get Drew Smith and get him cold out of the bullpen to face off against Mike Brasso. And granted, he did get ahead. Got ahead 0-2. But Brasso fouled a couple of pitches off. He was on the fastball. Drew Smith tries to go back to the slider. What happens? Hangs one. Brasso hits a grand slam. Game over. And it's that simple. So I'm never the guy that wants to blame the manager. I'm not necessarily blaming the manager for losing this game. And that's what we're going to discuss in the next segment. But that was just one series of decision-making that was baffling to me. The way this game was managed was so confusing. And it was putting so much stress and importance on this game. And I get it. Every game is important down the stretch. But you also have to keep the playoffs in mind. And while winning the division is a massive, massive thing for this playoff run the Mets are going to try to go on here, having a healthy team that has guys confident and ready to perform is nearly as important. And that's what we're going to discuss next here because I just did not like the decisions that Buck Showalter made in this game. Before we get to that, though, do you remember winning felt easy? That's because when you were younger, you were at the peak of your testosterone production. What some have called the winner's hormone or the man hormone. Wouldn't it be nice to get that winner's edge again and that old swagger back in your step? Well, if you want more energy to counter the negative physical effects of aging, Nugenix Total T testosterone booster with testosterone will help you turn back the clock, re-energize your workouts, get you better results in the gym, and help you look and feel like the man you really want to be. Nugenix Total T contains man-boosting key ingredients like testosterone and has been validated in 5 clinical studies shown to boost free testosterone levels in men. Because Nugenix Total T boosts free testosterone that the aging process robs, you'll feel stronger, leaner, with more energy and drive, and more passion too. Your partner will notice the difference. While every product professes quality, many other products use generic ingredients. With Nugenix Total T, you get the same clinical potency levels used in the trials, and Nugenix formulation is backed by 10 years of science and research. That's why the number one selling testosterone booster at GNC. If you want to try it now, get a complimentary bottle of the Nugenix Total T when you text MLB to 231231. Text now and get a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, their most powerful fat incinerator ever, with key ingredients to help you get back into shape absolutely free. All you have to do is text MLB to 231231. Text MLB to 231231. Message and data rates apply. Terms and conditions apply. Available at Nugenix.com/terms. Buck Showalter. I hate knocking the manager. It's something that I did a lot probably in the early time of this podcast. I certainly let Mickey Callaway have it many times, and I think Luis Rojas got it a little bit as well. But with Buck Showalter, I think he excels so much in the aspects of managing that are important, which is, getting your team ready to play and having your team focus series by series. And I give him so much credit for the season that we've just watched and the team that he has led, that I can't sit here and criticize some moves throughout one game and let it be more emblematic of anything further than just a frustrating day where I didn't understand what he was doing out there. I didn't get it. And there's a couple things that screamed to me. The first one, we've already discussed a little bit here, which is having Taijuan Walker go back out, having David Peterson pitching pretty well, and you end up pulling him. That I didn't really get. Going to Drew Smith the way he went to Drew Smith. So much about that inning was bad. But here's the thing that also really rubbed me the wrong way. Jeff McNeil laboring through an injury in this game. Now, McNeil might not have wanted to get pulled. I don't know what's going on there entirely. But you have to protect your players a little bit. And Jeff McNeil is hobbled out there playing left field because Brandon Nimmo went down, by the way. And, well, I guess Canna came in for Nimmo. Regardless, Jeff McNeil did start the game and left. I got a little bit ahead of myself with wanting to go through the injuries. But regardless, McNeil's out playing left field, and you love him as a hard-nosed gamer who's trying to make every play. But on that grand slam, he goes up to rob a home run that I don't think he had any real chance at. You could say he looked close on the replay, but that would have been the type of catch he would have been trying to make there. And the way he sacrificed his body to try to make that catch, you don't want to see that. And the thing to me is, if he was hurt at all, why is Jeff McNeil out there? Look, I get not wanting Darren Ruff playing too much right now, but throw him out in left field as soon as there's the slightest sign of injury. Instead, you have this guy who's already laboring through stuff, leaping into a wall and nearly ending his season. Now, right now, last I heard and saw on social media and everything else, it appears he'll be fine. It actually appears Brandon Nimmo will be fine. He's got quad tightness. They will get some imaging done to make sure, but at this rate, it appears like the Mets could have avoided some really devastating injuries in this one. Yet, you got to protect these guys a little bit. And Nimmo, there's really nothing to be said because he did get pulled pretty early. But Jeff McNeil's out playing through it. And he's more susceptible to injury when he tries to make that type of a catch. And you have to understand the player that Jeff McNeil is. You have to know your own personnel. Know that he's not going to be able to pull up and run 80% and protect his body. He is going to dive for everything, even things that he probably doesn't need to dive for. He's going to leap and try to rob every home run. And in the process, he could hurt himself and could really cost you your season. You need everyone healthy. So I just didn't like that combination of things. And again, you get to that seventh inning. Not to say it would have been avoided if they went to another pitcher, because that's getting a little bit too far ahead of yourself. You don't really know what could have happened there, but it's just confusing. And it felt like the game was getting managed as if the season was ending tomorrow if the Mets didn't win it. And as much as you got to keep pace with the Braves, as much as that's important, I just don't think it is more important than making sure your guys stay healthy. And you got to protect some of these guys sometimes. So, didn't think that Buck Showalter had his best day at the ballpark. I still after everything I just said, could sit back and say that there's very few managers that could have jumped into this job. And I know the players are great, but there's more to baseball than just good players. There's not many managers that would have had the Mets in the position that they're at right now, 95-56. And that's why I usually give them a free pass, and that's why we're not harping on it any further. But it was puzzling, to say the least. And now, where's Drew Smith's confidence as he tries to make a playoff bullpen? In just a minute, I want to go through the 40-man roster, the guys that are active as well, try to figure out what this bullpen could look like. If it's a 7-man bullpen or an 8-man bullpen, it is a big decision that has to be made, and has to be made relatively soon. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. How many guys are going to be in the Mets bullpen come October? Well, if they're going to go with the 4-man rotation, you can see them going with an 8-man bullpen and still have all the position players they would want, even including a Terrence Gore. So let's just say it's an 8-man pen, and that's including your 5th starter that would be in the bullpen. Go up and down the list here. All right. Bassett and Carrasco, they're going to be in the rotation, as is Jacob deGrom, as is Max Scherzer. That is basically where you're at here. Carrasco could get bumped for Taijuan Walker, but not the best outing because he was probably pushed an inning too soon there, too far in this one. Still, I just don't know if the Mets would really pull the trigger on Taijuan over Carrasco, but I still think Taijuan's going to be on the playoff roster. So that's 1. Edwin Diaz, 2. Adam Ottavino, 3. 4, Seth Lugo. 5, would you see Tyler McGill, David Peterson? I think that is a debate. Will Joely Rodriguez make it? Drew Smith is an option. Trevor Williams is an option. There's a lot that comes into play here. You also have Michael Givens and Tommy Hunter both on the IL right now. Tommy Hunter, lower back tightness, which could just be, hey, we want to keep you around, Tommy, but your spot has to be given up for Drew Smith. Givens, probably COVID IL. All of that is to say there is so many decisions to be made, and I just don't know where the Mets are going to go here, because I could see them going rotation heavy and putting both Peterson and McGill in a playoff bullpen. Do they go with Joely Rodriguez because he has thrown the ball a little bit later, or a little bit better as of late? But are you going to trust him in October? And also, I forgot Trevor May, who is definitely going to be in the bullpen. Not to mention you have Joe Lucchesi coming back from Tommy John. So, to me, the locks in this pen, it's Taijuan Walker, I believe. I do. Edwin Diaz, Adam Ottavino, Seth Lugo, Trevor May. That's 5. Tyler McGill, David Peterson, all of these guys could grab those final 3 spots. It's a matter of who's healthy, and it's a matter of who's performing well when you get to that point. But it's a lot of decisions that have to be made, and you're almost running out of time here to make them. These guys have to be pitching in big spots to try to close out this division. But then that roster goes from 28 to 26, and the decisions become very, very difficult. I'm happy I don't have to make them, because honestly, I don't even know which way I would go right now. Probably leaning towards the starter depth more than anything, and going Peterson and McGill over someone like Joely Rodriguez, and even a Tommy Hunter or a Michael Givens, if that had to be the case. Drew Smith, I would have thought he would have been a playoff bullpen, but now considering his season, you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. But the Mets get a much-needed day off on Thursday to regroup. And then they got that series at Oakland that they really got to win. Last West Coast trip. Late games, I'm sure. Let's go for the start. Well, we're going to preview that series on tomorrow's show, so I'll give you the start times of the West Coast games. Then I'm also, for a Friday Farm Report, going to talk about the championship-winning St. Lucie Mets and more, some of their top players that did a really nice job in the playoffs that the Mets just drafted in Blade Tidwell and Kevin Parada. So all that on the show tomorrow. Make sure that you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast so you don't miss it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Locked On MLB is where you want to go to stay up to date with everything going on in Major League Baseball. You follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.